Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Robert Rule Show. I'm your host, Robert Rule. As always, today is Sunday, November 25th, 2012. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello. This
Dave.
is David Macko. Yes. I was on your show last week. The effort is going to be to try to brainwash the Republicans into compromising. They don't have to compromise. They have a majority in the House of Representatives. They can use that to stop any of Obama's programs that require money.
Right.
Even though they don't control the Senate and the results probably wouldn't be optimal, they could impeach Obama for treason, war crimes, and treating the Constitution like a piece of toilet paper, and to educate the American people. Even if he's not convicted, which is not likely under present circumstances, it still ties up the government and keeps them from doing other bad things.
So there's a lot of things that the Congress can do.
Oh,
They're
yes.
just not doing it.
Well, your description of the Republican Party leadership at the beginning of the program and their use of the Vaseline was very accurate.
Oh no! That's trying to compare this to a rectal exam is wrong.
It is what it is, Arlie.
What they say.
I have no great love for the Republican Party, as you know from last week. I am chairman of the Libertarian Party of Cuyahoga County, Ohio. So, but there are a few good Republicans. People like Ron Paul.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of good Republicans. There's a lot of good Republicans. It's just these guys that are in there that we trust, and they come and they give great speeches, and it's nice to hear. But as soon as they get back, they're just going to bend over again. I mean, what is going on, Dave?
You need to go by their record. There's one of the congressional voting sources which I put most reliance in is the Freedom Index of the John Birch Society's magazine.
Oh, yeah,
American.
they're really good.
Yes, they are. The best way you can tell is look at the score for Ron Paul. He always gets 100. So they're reliable. The other secondarily reliable indexes are where they give Ron Paul a 0, so you just reverse all the other percentages. If they give Ron Paul a 0 and some other congressman a 70, he's really a 30. But if they don't give Ron Paul 100 or a 0, they're worthless. They don't have any value as information sources.
So, Dave, we were going to Wednesday. What had happened to me was my son did not check in, and I couldn't get a hold of him, and so I had to go out and hunt for him. So that kind of ruined the show Wednesday. And we're going to talk about Agenda 21, and I understand that you're prepared to talk about it.
I am reasonably prepared. We'll find out in the next hour and a half as to just how prepared people think I am. But, yeah, I think so. Agenda 21 was devised in 1993, I believe it was, at a UN conference in Rio de Janeiro. They used the various propaganda slogans of theirs that there's global warming caused by human activity, that there is peak oil and peaks of other resources and other lies, which the establishment media, of course, incessantly hammer into the people.
What are you talking about?
Let me stop you. Let me stop you for a minute, Dave, because we know they used to call oil a fossil fuel, but we know oil is not made from fossils, correct?
I have looked at the abiotic theory of oil. I'm not an expert in that field, but the fact is that when the Russians started studying the abiotic theory of oil, they thereupon became some of the greatest producers of oil. So there's a lot of evidence that the fossil fuel theory is wrong and that it does reproduce itself in the earth and comes up and can be accessed almost indefinitely. Yeah.
Go ahead, Arlie.
I trying to remember that man. There's a man by the name of Maurice or something. What was his name at the UN?
Maurice Strong.
Yeah,
Maurice
he was
Strong,
probably,
yeah.
was
Maurice
he behind
Strong.
the 21 thing? I think he probably was.
Oh, yes. He's a typical...
He said that all industry and everything should be destroyed and returned to nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These people are enemies of the human race. Maurice Strong, and most of them are hypocrites, too. Maurice Strong is a multimillionaire from Canada, and there's nothing wrong with being a multimillionaire if you got it by providing products or services that people want and exchanging. I haven't studied him enough to know whether he really did that. But here he goes around and he has these huge mansions. There's nothing wrong with that either if you got them from exchanging goods or services voluntarily. But he has these huge mansions, and he wants you and me to live in hovels and freeze in winter and roast in the summer. And the only way to promote the Agenda 21, is to get rid of 3/4 or 4/5 or even 9/10 of the whole human race. These people are enemies of the human race, literally.
Right.
In fact, they're worse than that. These hardcore ecology nuts are worse than the communists. The communists murdered tens of millions of people and they enslaved billions of people, but they always lied that this was for the ultimate good of the human race. In 50 years or 100 years, once we get rid of capitalism and destroy the current civilization, the new civilization will be so great for people. But the ecology nuts, the really hard ecology nuts, which they call themselves the hard ecologists in some cases, they don't even pretend to have any fondness for the human race. Who was it? Prince Philip of England? He said he'd like to be a virus to kill 98% of the human race. These are literally enemies of the human race. They don't even pretend to be doing this for the human race. They want to kill us off, most of us.
Yeah, I told you. I've been telling people that King and Queen in England, those two people, her with her elbows in the public trough, snuffing up food and money. I said those people are not charming. Everybody's like, oh, we love them. When what was her name? I can't think of the name of that woman that got married and the one son,
Kate
William
Middleton.
and Kate. I'm thinking of and it's funny. People in America are, like a bunch of, I don't know how to describe it, like a bunch of seals.
Sheeple.
But the fish and the chums being thrown to them. They're all enthralled to this royal stuff. I'm like, didn't we get away from royalty for a reason?
Yeah, the founding fathers fought a war about that. But with the way the government schools teach youngsters, then those people don't even remember that anymore.
No.
So go ahead and continue, Dave.
So as I said, these people hate the human. They hate the human race. They're literally enemies of humanity, and so they began this program based on the false theories of that global warming is caused by man, or even that there is global warming. The evidence is that for the last 10 or 15 years, what global warming there was has stopped, and they also claim that these shortages are coming, so that we have to basically live in poverty and in hovels like the savages did for thousands of years. Now they're implementing the Agenda 21 not only on the international level and on the national level, but they're very subversive. They do it on the local level too, through zoning, through creating the idea that we can merge the various communities. We should give up just a little bit. There's this wilding program. There was a map about 10 years ago which shows what they want to do to the United States. There are huge red splotches in the map that would where there'd be no human life allowed at all. Then there's other areas that are highly regulated, and then there's still more areas that are basically like little feudal bailiwicks where people would be allowed to live, but they wouldn't have automobiles anymore. They'd have to live in very small dwellings or very crammed together in apartments where they can be more easily controlled by the government. And it's all for control. All to deprive us of what remaining liberties we still have.
What you said a little bit ago about the local level, now they know what a lot of us that are even involved in the party don't know, and that is we're strongest at the local level.
Yes. Well, they have to be resisted at all levels, at the city level, the county level, the state level, the federal level. Of course, one good, very important thing we can do, and this solves not only the Agenda 21 problem, but the global gun control issue, the law of the sea treaty, the International Criminal Court, is to get the United States out of the United Nations and the United Nations out of the United States. Now, Ron Paul has promoted the American Sovereignty Restoration Act for as long as he's been in Congress. The Libertarian Party has supported getting us out of the United Nations for a long time, specifically until the platform was changed in 2006, but by implication it still continues to end all the entangling alliances. Of course, NATO is a subsidiary of the United Nations. By the way, what is a North Atlantic Treaty Organization doing in Afghanistan? That's not in the Atlantic. It's not in North America or Europe. It's in the middle of Asia in mountains. And again, this is another example of how the government schools have taught geography so poorly that the average American wouldn't even stop to think about a North Atlantic Treaty Organization being in the middle of Asia.
Well, either A, they're mapping out the lithium in the mountains, or they're herding the poppy seeds.
Well, yeah, the CIA. Well, how is the CIA going to finance itself to overthrow governments all over the world if it doesn't control the drugs? And how's
right? The heroin trade is.
Yeah, how is it going to use the drug war as an excuse to rob us of our liberties? Now, years ago, I was talking to a politician. I suggested that since they have the false flag operation of 9/11 now to impose the police state on us, they ought to get rid of the drug war. It's just being redundant. But back to Agenda 21. The best way to stop Agenda 21 is to get us out of the United Nations. And of course, the best way to fight all of these programs is by exposure. Everything they do is based on lies and suppression of truth, and that's why they hate the truth so much. Why they hate us when we are willing and able to speak the truth.
Well, you know, they did in this last NDAA bill, at least what I've heard. I haven't researched it, so don't take my word for it. But according to good sources, there was some money, I believe it was $500 million, I could be wrong, allotted to the Pentagon for propaganda for us. I don't know if you've heard the same thing or not.
Now that you mention it, I do recall something like that. I have no doubt it's happening. You know, the Democrats, of course, want to have welfare for the poor, and the Republicans, of course, want to have welfare for the military-industrial complex. And it's ridiculous because and this is even on Wikipedia, which I believe they're reliable in this instance, that as of 2010, the United States spent more on military expenses than the next 12 or 13 countries combined. Now, I know our misrulers have made a lot of enemies for us over the last century. That's true. But the next 13 countries isn't. It used to be that the military was supposed to be able to protect us from the next 2 or 3 possible enemies combining together. It's all totally ridiculous. That's why Gary Johnson's idea of cutting the cutting all government spending 43% in the 2013 budget was such a good idea, or as libertarians call it, a good start. But getting back to Agenda 21, yes, it's a means to communize us through the communitarian ecological propaganda. And they use zoning, which of course is contrary to principles of private property. They use, or if you're going to have zoning, have it at the local basic level and have a 90% or 85% vote of the people at the local level. And, of course, to respect the rights of private property, which is the basis of our civilization.
Dave, let me play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
Don't you like the environment?
Yes.
What do you have against the environment?
Everyone wants to. None of us want to choke to death or die of poisoned water. If we were a free country, any real pollution problems would be solved as problems of trespass. If you
private
we
property
have a creek,
rights, yeah.
Private property rights, yes. If you put substances, particles into the air which cause me to choke, that's a violation of my right to breathe. You should be sued in a court and brought to justice. If you put poisons in water that I'm drinking, likewise. If you put something on my property, the same thing. Of course, the biggest polluters have been governments. U.S. government with the DU, the atomic substances.
Yeah, that's right, DU.
Yeah. And of course, the biggest example of pollution was Chernobyl. That was the Soviet government doing it to the people of the Ukraine because they didn't believe that the value of the lives of the people of Ukraine were high enough to counteract their need for energy. So it's the whole propaganda system has turned everything around so that people cannot think clearly because they don't have access to accurate information, and which is one reason I enjoy being on your show and trying to give accurate information, because you guys have been doing a very good job of it from what I can tell.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Arlie. You have a comment or a question?
Oh, I just, I think that I would agree with him. I just, I believe that government and things like that are better handled by the people or the local level, and that government closest to the people is best. Government that governs least is the government that governs best, and I think Thomas Jefferson said that. I think that a lot of these things, a lot of them have, I would agree, they have motives. The people that have written a lot of this stuff up have very, very bad motives. They're wicked. They're evil. And on the other hand, there are some following it that have very good intentions. But good intentions won't solve our problems. Oftentimes their so-called good intentions have only caused more problems.
Well, I think someone said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
That's right.
Sometimes I think half the trouble in the world is caused by evil people, and the other half is caused by people they take advantage of. And again, your good intentions are useless until you apply logic to them, until you apply the truth to them.
And the good men don't have the balls to stand up.
Not enough do. But one good thing is, as the situation gets worse, more people are waking up, and they pretty soon they're going to realize they have no choice except to wake up and stand up, or be taken over and enslaved.
Well, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't unite, we'll hang together, or separately, I mean. If we don't band together, we'll hang separately.
That's right.
And getting back to the subject of hanging, there's this monument in Georgia, sort of a Georgian
Guidestones.
Georgia Guidestones.
Georgia Guidestones, yes, thank you. And that calls for the extermination of 90% of the human race. They want the human race to reduce
500 million.
500 million, exactly. Now, that's not going to happen unless you kill the other 95%. Excuse me, other 90%. There's no way that's going to happen voluntarily.
I wanted to comment on that. The Guidestones, a lot of people want to link that to the old Bavarian Illuminati. I'd like to say that I actually take that personally offensive, those that try to say the Illuminati is behind that monument, the Illuminati is behind all the things that's going on in this world. No, the Illuminati, I've studied them, and they were a secret society, but they were about liberation. They were about freedom. They were, again, as a matter of fact, when their plans were found out, they had plans to overthrow every monarch in Europe at their time in their day, and they wanted to overthrow the church at Rome. They did not care for monarchy, tyranny over mankind, and they were about liberty. So, a lot of people want to link them up with some kind of sinister plan.
I really have to disagree with you on that one, Arlie. Even George Washington believed that the book about the Illuminati was accurate, and he tried to expose that. He tried to spread the word to people. They did not only want to overthrow monarchies; they wanted to overthrow all governments and then set up a one-world government, which is very similar to what the communists propagandize. But
I'm sorry. I've read Weissaup's writings. I cannot agree with you on that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Did you read Proofs of a Conspiracy, though, by... darn it, my mind is blank. I can't remember the professor's name.
But that's just John Robeson. Let me say
Robeson, thank you. Yes.
Well, let me just say this. Who would you rather read, John Robeson or the things that Weissaup wrote? I'd rather have it from the horse's mouth.
I'd rather read both, but you keep in mind when you're reading works of the Illuminati or the works of the communists that I believe there is a connection between them. They do not believe in truth as an absolute. They believe that whatever will advance the cause of communism is the truth. So,
well, you know a different Adam Weishaupt than I know, and I can't. I'm sorry, I just can't agree with that.
Well, I think we can agree to disagree then.
What direct sources do you have? I would be interested in checking this out. I'm not going to say I'm doing it tomorrow or even the next week, but I'd be interested in looking at it.
We actually lost Arlie.
Oh.
He should be
Hope
back.
He comes back on. Yeah. No, it's healthy. It's good and healthy to have exchanges of opinion. That's what the enemy hates so much. That's why they kept me off the City Club Forum debate this year. They don't want people thinking. They don't want people exchanging different ideas.
It's good to have arguments, and we're not always going to agree, all of us.
No.
But that's the purpose of this show.
Mm-hmm.
So what else do you have for us on Agenda 21? I mean, what is the... If we do things at a national level or even at a state level, it's difficult to do.
Well, again, go to the source and get the United States out of the United Nations and the United Nations out of the United States. Do you know now I just got the most recent edition of the book. There's now over 900 World Heritage sites, including Independence Hall, and it appears from some of what they say they want to claim ownership of it.
Right, but getting the United Nations out of the U.S. and vice versa would be near impossible with the politicians we have today.
Well, yes, of course. We have to replace them with Americans. But if you had an American Congress, a Libertarian Congress, or a Ron Paul Republican Congress, or a Constitution Party Congress, or some combination of those, we meaning the American tax suckers, taxpayers, pay for 1/4 of the United Nations funds, even though we're only one member out of 190 some members. So again, here the House of Representatives, which has the power of the purse, could simply stop funding the UN, and it would go away very soon. The city of New York we could withdraw diplomatic immunity from them, and the city of New York could start collecting the millions of dollars of parking fees they have. I think they'd be out of the country in 72 hours if they didn't have diplomatic immunity for smuggling in drugs, for who knows what else they smuggle in.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't make the mainstream news, did it? When they stopped the cocaine shipment right there at the door.
Mm-hmm. No, the media is the enemy. That's the first. Everyone listening to this show, understand that the mainstream, what we've been calling the mainstream media since this is a family show, is the enemy. It is an enemy of Jesus Christ. It's an enemy of the American people. It's an enemy of the Constitution. It's an enemy of the white race. It's an enemy of everything we hold decent. We need to establish an honest media. One of the big advantages of the Internet is that we have a runaround over the establishment media. And, of course, the UN wants to, as well as Agenda 21, the UN wants to take that over, too. I hope the listeners after the show will go to their computers, or at least some of them, and look up Rewilding Project, because if you see that map of the United States, and unfortunately this is a radio show, not a TV show, map of the United States, it shows over half of it totally cut off from all human habitation. These people are, when they think they're not being watched too closely, you find out just how weird and how much they're enemies of the human race.
Well, and they're not even hiding anymore. It's just right out in the open now, because
that's
the best place to hide something.
Mm-hmm. They're brazen about it, which in a way is good, because everything we've been saying for many years, which was called a conspiracy theory, is now things they admit themselves. Now, again, getting back to the Agenda 21, everyone should fight it on your city council. They should fight it in the county government, especially where the county government is getting stronger, as in Cuyahoga County in Ohio. They should fight it at the state level. They should fight it at the federal level, and as well as until such time as we get the United States out of the United Nations, because at the local level especially, they're very surreptitious about it. They're still trying to put it through as just something to make the air cleaner, make the water safer to drink, and obviously no one wants to poison our water. Well, except the people who promote fluoridation, of course. They have poisoned the water. Yeah, but
and then, that's something that's something people can do also. They can go to their city councils and ask them to take the fluoride out of the water.
Mm-hmm. You can fight city halls. And it's
been done in many places.
Yes, it has been. It's, in fact, one of the reasons that government should, to the extent that we need government and have a government, and we can debate that a long time as to how much we need, it's best to have it at the local level. You should always fight. You should always favor the local level over the state level, and the state level over the federal. And of course, as long as we have the UN, and that's another reason to get out of it, favor the FedGov over the internationalist one-worlders who run the UN.
Well, someone had suggested on this show not too long ago that we fly the Ohio flag in our yards instead of the American flag.
That's a thought. When I ran for Congress, I decided to run a moderate campaign, and so I didn't call for secession. Perhaps I should have. I don't know. I'll think about that for 2014 if I decide to do anything else. But the American people are thinking about the alternatives, such as secession. Nullification would be the better. Nullification would be the better
secession wouldn't work. I think nullification is the way to go.
Well, it didn't work in 1861 to 1865. If everyone was doing it, it might work better. Nullification, though, is perfectly constitutional. It was proposed by the then Vice President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and by the man who's generally thought of as the father of the Constitution, James Madison. And this was a perfectly logical means of solving problems so that states or smaller groups would not have to secede. Because if you, to the idea that the only part of the federal government that can call laws unconstitutional are the courts is silly. Because as Thomas Woods said in his excellent book, Nullification, How to Fight Federal Tyranny, How to Resist Federal Tyranny in the 21st Century, giving the FedGov the power to decide what FedGov actions are legal is like giving one party to a contract to determine the terms of the contract. It's nonsense. So the states obviously do have the right not to enforce unconstitutional laws. The president can veto a law he considers unconstitutional. Of course, if Congress doesn't believe a law is constitutional, they shouldn't pass it unless they're Nancy Pelosi and telling the people that, pass the law so you'll find out what's in it then. Okay. Would she do that?
The famous health care bill.
Would she do that? Would she do that with a contract she was writing? I'll have a contract for her. I'll make her my slave.
I can't believe she's still in office after that.
Well, she's in a...
those people in her district must be the dumbest people ever.
Well, we have a few districts like that in Ohio, too. Yeah, they certainly are. My theory is that there are large numbers of people who would vote for Satan if he were running on the Democrat ticket or if she were, and there are other group of people who would vote for Satan if he was running on the Republican ticket. So, I truly believe there are. You can't find out unless you legally change your name to Satan and run. But I definitely don't want to do that. But I really believe that there are people who would vote for Satan if they were in their party.
I would really like to see what they're putting in the water there.
Fluoride, it's poison. Yeah, they talk. Here's another thing showing the hypocrisy of the ecology nuts. If they want pure water, why aren't they joining patriots and constitutionalists to oppose fluoridation of water?
I have no idea. Hang on, I got a call.